Hi, everyone. It's great to be together today. Welcome to our Social Innovation in Action webinar. I am Megan Trace, Director of Social Innovation at United Way Worldwide, and we're just so happy to have you here today as we take a deep dive to learn about a very exciting innovation from Chester County, Pennsylvania, where they actually did a comprehensive mobile homes tax reassessment project and saved millions of dollars for people in their community. So we're going to learn about that and get started. Next, please. So today's plan, we're going to do a little bit of getting to know the room. So we'll start with a few polls and some context setting on today's topic, and then introduce our speakers. And then the majority of our time we'll be hearing directly from United Way of Chester County and their partner Legal Aid, as well as United Way of Bucks County, who has expanded this project and scaled to their community. We'll have ample time for Q&A. Feel free to drop your questions as they come to mind in the chat, and we will catch them all in our Q&A section. So you can see the first panel question, or sorry, the poll question up there. Please go ahead and let us know if you are representing an organization today. What's your primary function there? You may be here in a volunteer context as well. This is open to anyone. So let us know, please, where you're from. Thanks. We can go to the next slide. Are we able to see the responses, Pauline? All right, so it looks like we have some impact staff, some resource development staff, and a few others. Please do feel free to chat in the chat box if it's another role. And thank you for those who are sharing where you're from in the chat. Encourage everyone to share where you're joining from today. So for our other poll, we wanted to ask if your organization has experience partnering with your local legal aid. Are we able to view the results? Okay, so a couple do, a couple don't, and then maybe we just don't know what existing partnerships there are. Well, that's helpful context as our presenters can think about how to best provide their guidance today. Thank you, everyone. Next, please. So before digging into this particular case study, I just wanted to provide some overview remarks regarding the importance of manufactured or mobile home housing in the United States, just so you have a sense of how this may be relevant to your community you serve. So 17 million Americans live in manufactured homes. And so that's just another term for mobile homes. And this is a really important stock of affordable home ownership for Americans in the US. And so it represents about 7% of our nation's housing stock. And it's the largest source of unsubsidized affordable housing in the nation. So this is really an entree point for many people to have home ownership. I think maybe counter to the name itself, most mobile homes are never moved once they're built. Only about 19% of people are moving their homes, and mostly they're fairly settled. So it's not a super transient population. And it's really important, especially in rural housing. It represents about 15% of all housing in rural areas, as it's also fairly common in suburban areas and less so in urban areas. So that just gives us a lay of the land in terms of kind of how this housing solution is permeating our country and really representing an important source of housing for our community members. Next, please. And so now I'm really happy to introduce our guest speakers today. So we have Chris Salo, who's the president and CEO of United Way of Chester County. He served in that role since 2019, and prior had been the senior vice president there for 9 years. He also serves on the board of the United Ways of Pennsylvania. Brian Doyle is a guest from the Legal Aid of Southeastern Pennsylvania. He's a staff attorney and the pro bono coordinator for Chester County. He handles cases involving family law, access to public benefits, and protection for victims of domestic violence. And he has worked on this project since its initiation in 2019. So he is a long timer on this project. Sarah Planthaber is a certified legal intern at Legal Aid, and she's worked on the project for the past 2 years. She specializes in custody, domestic violence, unemployment compensation, Social Security, and FEMA disaster relief. And then Tim Philpott is our guest from United Way of Bucks County. He's the impact director for financial stability and health. And he has supervised the replication of this mobile homes project in Bucks County. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris to kick us off. And we're so grateful for you all to be here today and share your story. Thank you.
Thanks, Megan. Good afternoon, everybody. We want to start by saying, by no means are we the experts on housing or innovation. We learn so much every day from our colleagues around the country. And really, I think this project is more about looking for those niche opportunities to really go deeper. And we'll tell you about the one that we found, and it may or may not be something that could benefit your community. So do you want to start with the video?
Years ago, if you bought a mobile home brand new for $30,000, you've never taken it upon yourself to file a reassessment. For 22 years, you've been paying taxes on that mobile home as if it's worth the $30,000 you paid for it, as if it's brand new. But it's now a 22-year-old mobile home. That's like having a 22-year-old car that's probably only worth maybe $4,000, but you're still being taxed as if it's brand new at $30,000.
So, I'll start by saying, this all began when the United Way of Pennsylvania participated in the Alice report, which many states have done. And we were one of the investors in that study. Chester County, Pennsylvania is the wealthiest county in the state of Pennsylvania, and kind of unique. It's the highest education level, it's the wealthiest, and it's the healthiest. So working in education, health, and financial stability, you can imagine it makes the work a little bit challenging to find the people that need the help. But when the Alice report came out for Pennsylvania, despite hearing that over and over again from our commissioners and things, we were shocked to find that 27% of people in our county were Alice. So they were either, poverty and below, or they were between the poverty level and the self-sufficiency level. And we decided as a state, our stake in the ground of what we were going to stand for is we were going to help Alice. That was going to be our target, and we were going to focus on that. So we rolled the Alice report out to our donors and corporate partners, and I think some people scratched their heads and didn't quite believe that that it was that high. And then obviously when the pandemic hit, we saw very quickly within just a couple weeks of the pandemic hitting in Pennsylvania, going into lockdown, lines at the food pantries, people were sleeping out overnight. And that just reinforced it and kind of gave us a lot more credibility that that was a real study with real accurate numbers. But as part of that process of trying to hone in on the Alice population, one of the biggest challenges that we discovered in Chester County is housing is incredibly expensive, and there's just not a lot of affordable housing. Kind of during the same path, we also learned just the extent of mobile homes. There's 3,600 mobile homes in one poorer part of our county. In a 6-mile stretch, there's 1,000 mobile homes, and it's one of the poorer parts of the county. So we were working with one of the local food pantries, and a volunteer there had discovered that some of the people that were coming into the food pantry were having a hard time making ends meet because their taxes on their mobile home was super high. So as he investigated and learned more about it, he discovered a flaw in the state tax code. So a car or a mobile home is not like a house. It doesn't have a deed. It has a title like you would have with a car, and it doesn't appreciate like a home and land, but it depreciates like a car. The problem is in Pennsylvania anyway, the state tax code requires that all homes be taxed the same. You can't differentiate. So, you know, you buy that mobile home 20 years ago for 30 grand, every year it depreciates about 3%. So, you know, you get 10 years in, it's worth 30% less than you paid for it, but every year you've been paying your taxes at a level as if it was brand new. And in our county, the only way to fix that is to go through a very cumbersome reassessment process. And a process that frankly wasn't set up for poor people. You know, it was a very lengthy application, had a fee attached to it. And then for the valuation, you know, there was a fee attached to that. And if you got it in between May 1st and August 1st, which was the only period you could submit it, then you had to go to Westchester, which is the county's, you know, where the county government is, for a 4-minute hearing in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week. And our county is 780 square miles. So for many people, that just doesn't work. Right? It's a system set up against them. Well, we learned about it and we wanted to do something about it. So we decided, as we looked into it, these were, as you see on the screen now, many of the reasons people didn't do it. They didn't understand the process. They were scared and intimidated by going in front of an appeal assessment board. It just cost too much. They didn't have the technology to be able to print things out and submit things and find the valuations. It was just a complicated process. So we began this journey and decided we were going to pilot it in 2 of the poorest mobile home parks and go in and do anybody that wanted to do it. We would find the funding and we would basically try to lift up the whole neighborhood at one time. We needed a partner, and Legal Aid has worked with us on many different things and is one of our closest partners. And we reached out to them and honestly didn't know what to expect. And I mean, they went all in with us. And frankly, that's one of the points of this is find partners that you can trust that are in it for the same reasons you are. Without Legal Aid, this program didn't happen, but we piloted it in 2 really poor neighborhoods. We were able to complete 177 appeals, reassessment appeals. And what we found is those 177 mobile homeowners were overassessed by 70%. On average, 4 times what they should have been paying. In one case, 14 times what they should have been paying. And so you know, the mobile homes were assessed at $6.5 million. And when we were done, their real assessed value was 1.9 million. So they were overassessed 4.5 million. And we saved those 177 mobile homeowners 1.7 million over the next 10 years that they should have never owed to begin with. Where legal aid really became an incredible partner there was 10% of those mobile homeowners were facing eviction for back taxes they shouldn't have owed. So 18 of those mobile homeowners were facing imminent homelessness, and legal aid was able to work with each and every one of them, and none of them were evicted. But it was just kind of this hidden problem that we didn't know existed, nor did anybody else. So we really got onto our soapbox and just told everybody, every legislator in our county. But in the process, working with legal aid, we learned how the system was broken, and we learned how we could fix it to help these people. So while we were doing the reassessments, we were advocating to our county tax office to simplify the process. Every mobile home that we did in the pilot program was accepted as presented. So we knew our valuation tool was good. So we went to the county and said, well, if they're accepting them, every one of them as presented, why do they need to be here in person? It's not going to change the end result. And we were able to make that optional, which really opened the door for a lot of people. We can go to the next slide. So at that point, you know, we decided we were going to go all in, and we were going to do any mobile homeowner in the county that wanted it until we got through all 3,600. And we began this journey. It was not a big investment. It cost us about $75 per reassessment. That's $25 for our staff time, $25 for legal aid staff time, and $25 for the application fee that the county requires. Through that process, we started opening it up, and you can imagine that's not an incredibly large investment for a homeowner to get $1,000 return every year in perpetuity after that. So to only have to invest $75 and save them potentially $10,000 in 10 years is a great return on investment for our United Way. One of our staff members, Darshana Shyam-Sunder, who is the champion of this program, she spends about 30% of her time from January to August working with coordinating the program. We learned a lot along the way, and hopefully Brian will be able to refer to some of those lessons learned. But in the process, we have been able to give some people some financial independence, and the numbers, frankly, have never. We thought maybe because we hit some of the poorer neighborhoods first that it would. You know, it would kind of tail off and it wouldn't be as big of an impact as we got through them. But to date, we've done 766 reassessments. Those mobile homes were assessed at $26.5 million pre-reassessment, $8.5 million after. So they were $18 million overassessed. And we've saved them on average almost $900. So collectively, those 766 mobile homeowners, we've saved them $6.9 million over the next 10 years that they should have never owed to begin with. We've also had other partners along the way. And so I throw this out to you just as an area to look into when you're looking for how do you really impact people who are financially unstable in your community. Housing is a great place to start. Maybe you don't have the same mobile home project problem that we had here, but what we've learned along the way as well is the lot rents for mobile homes are incredibly high. So we're saving them to taxes, but in many cases, these 30-year-old mobile homes are sitting on a piece of land that's, you know, rented in a mobile home park, and they're being charged $500 to $800 a month for the lot rent. So that's another issue that we're going to look into as well. But we've also had partners along the way. Our United Way to the south of us collaborated with us to penetrate some of the areas that we didn't maybe have as good closer relationships with agencies, and they did. So they were able to help us. We partnered with La Comunidad Hispana so that we didn't have to use translators, which lengthened the process. We could actually just use Spanish-speaking staff members that they had. And finally, we partnered with the mobile home owners. When the park owners understand the issue and they recognize that this helps their tenants potentially not default on their lot rents, they became really great partners along the way. So we're always looking for different partners to collaborate with on this project. But what I would say to you as well with something like this is just ask some questions. Start talking to people in your county, whether it's your commissioners, your tax director. We found our tax director wasn't really threatened by this because once he recognized that it was an issue, he didn't, in a big county, those numbers look big, but they're not really big. They don't move the needle for any township. It's a combination of township taxes, school taxes, and municipal taxes. So there was it doesn't affect school budgets and things, but also start on a smaller scale and do a pilot because you may find out that it isn't what it appears or the problem is bigger than it appears. But really lining up your local county officials to collaborate with you and talk through it prior to launching something. You'll hear Tim talk about Bucks County. They decided to try to replicate it, and they're in the next county over from us, but they didn't have the same start as we had. And I think it was really because we didn't launch it right away, and we were able to figure out how our county commissioners felt about it prior to them hearing about it. And you got to have that relationship first. Once they understand it and you educate them, the relationship changes. But if they read about it in the paper, it may not be as well. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian, our primary partner with Legal Aid, and Sarah to talk about their partner process.
Hi, everyone. So based on the poll results that we saw, I just wanted to give a really brief overview about what legal aid is and what we do, just to give you some kind of perspective about where we're coming from. So legal aid provides free civil legal representation and advice for people below certain income requirements. So LSC, the Legal Services Corporation, is the major funder for legal aids, and our general target population is 125% and below of the federal poverty line. You heard some of the types of cases that Brian and I work on, family law, public benefits, that kind of thing. But another major thing that many legal aids do, I would argue probably all of them, is these kinds of community engagement and partnership opportunities with like-minded organizations like Chris mentioned. So Brian's going to get a little bit into the process with legal aid, but I just wanted to give that backdrop. And then at the end, I'll give my pitch for why a partnership with legal aid might be particularly useful or beneficial to United Ways across the country. So Brian, you can go ahead and talk about the process.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Chris, Darshana, and Stephanie, for shining a light on this problem. This is something that we never knew about as legal professionals, that there's an opportunity to appeal people's property taxes, save them thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars collectively, and make a real difference. This it's been a huge project over the past 3 years. 766 people over 3 years, $667,800 in their pockets every year. That's how much money is going to be staying in the community in Chester County, among people who actually can use it and need it for their day-to-day living expenses. It's a huge impact. So thank you so much for supporting us, making us a part of this. So I want to talk a little bit about the process, how we've changed the process, especially during 2020, although I think the project needed some tweaks in order to to expand to the scope that we were aiming for. 1,000 homes in a year was our original goal, and we've always been shooting for that, and we've been tweaking the process to try to get there. So originally, in the before times, the pre-COVID days, it was an entirely in person. We would partner with the local communities. Say, for example, there was a company that owned a mobile home park. We were able to set up shop in their actually corporate headquarters and meet people there. We would have an assembly line fashion. There would be a number of volunteers, say 3 volunteers, sometimes more than that. They would come, a client would be scheduled for a certain time. They would show up, come down to station 1, spend 10 minutes with a volunteer to do intake paperwork, to become a legal aid client, collect some demographic data, sign retainers to make us their attorneys, and then they'd be passed on to the next station, which would be a questionnaire. They'd interview them about the home, and these are all materials we've developed ahead of time so that volunteers can use them. They'd interview about the home, get the details, and they'd be passed along to the next station, which is sort of an appraisal of sorts. It's called NADA or MH Village. There's various services that can appraise mobile homes. It's kind of like a Kelly Blue Book for mobile homes. So we could get a value of the home based on the condition of the home and the interview, what the interview reveals, and it gives us a number. So the volunteers will help them complete all the paperwork, put it together in a packet. The files will be delivered to legal aid for the back end work. And I'll get a little bit into the back end work next, but post-COVID, what changed as a result of COVID? So not just COVID, like I said, it's trying to do 1,000 of these. It wasn't going to work in an assembly line. You couldn't be all these different places at once. It was the volume trying to keep up with it. So we had to make a change. In 2020, COVID forced our hand and required us to make that change. We had to take the process online. So what we did is we expanded it. So this is very much a partner-based project. It requires other agencies to be involved, the local community stakeholders. Everybody needs to be involved in it. So we brought in different legal resources. We brought in our Paralegals Association. We brought in law schools like the Penn Law Public Interest, the Toll Public Interest Center at Penn Law. It's very important that I get their name right because I've messed it up so many times. We've brought in our Bar Association. We brought in private attorneys who will volunteer their time for free. And it really becomes an interdisciplinary effort because not only is it these legal professionals, but then we have the food pantries who have the community ties, who know who we are serving. We have agencies like Good Works, which is another nonprofit, a charitable organization that will go out and repair homes. They give us the insight about what kind of values we should place on repairs to these homes. And it's having all these people at the table that lets us write really effective appeals that we can put in front of the board. So when we changed the process, we changed it from this workshop, or rather assembly line workshop, to an all online. So it's what was being done with 3 volunteers, we instead did with 1. It required a lot more training to get that 1 volunteer up to speed. So we did a number of trainings. We do Zoom workshops. We do one. Sarah herself was there for direct supervision for our volunteers throughout the time. But it made the whole process a lot more efficient. So what could take for an entire morning for a whole set of volunteers, it was just one volunteer, one morning, one time commitment, which I've found in sending cases out to volunteer attorneys. You really want to know what you're getting into before you take a case. So knowing that your time commitment is going to be a morning and that is fulfilled once the morning ends. That was great. So 30-minute appointments. We trained the volunteers. They put the files together. Everything was hosted on the Google Drives. I don't want to bog everybody down with the nitty gritty. If anybody wants to transport this project to their county, happy to share everything we've got and sort of troubleshoot the technicalities with you. But we used the Google Drives for it and then did the rest of the back end work here at our office. So the back end work, that's really where the fun starts, because we've got several hundred of these files at a time. You've got to have them in a particular order to present to the board in a very efficient manner so that they don't get frustrated with you and that they can move on to the next case, because this is their entire day at that point. They're trying to knock out every what case we put in front of them in a day, so they don't have a lot of wiggle room for us to mess up. So we review the work product once they get in. We file the notices with the tax office, and then we prep the files, and that means putting together all the authorization documents, our appeals packets. There's 3 board members. You got to put together a packet for each board member, and this is another great opportunity to involve volunteers. If you've got volunteers like high school kids or college kids, maybe not legal professionals, they can get involved with us photocopying, shredding, just putting the files together. There's a great need for that. And then we have the hearings. So we would engage volunteer attorneys. We would go to the Government Services Center here in Westchester, and the clients wouldn't even need to go, which was a huge deal for them, because Chester County, it's a suburban county. There's like one bus line that goes through the main thing. It's tough to get around. And people who are working, they can't take off in the middle of the day. And thankfully, Chris, Darshan, and Steph, they recognize this. So they really tried when they were doing their end of scheduling, engaging clients to go to where people are. And that is one important takeaway, is that the online model is great. I think it reaches people that we wouldn't have reached otherwise. But the in-person, I don't think we can do away with that entirely either, because that's reaching a different group of people, maybe older people who can't travel, for example, of one of many. So moving forward, my recommendation to the team would be we do some sort of hybrid, and I know Darshan's head's probably there as well. And we would have the hearings, and we would get the results, notify the clients, send out letters, and then this year we've actually been trying a lot harder to keep good data, new data, more granular data, so we can really figure out who we're helping, because we want to make sure that we're reaching ALICE population. As Sarah said, legal aid is for most cases 125% of the poverty line, which is significantly lower than what is ALICE. ALICE in Chester County for a family of 4 survival level is like $80,000. So pretty much anybody who qualifies for legal aid, well, that might be going too far. But anyway, so the data analysis has become a much more important part of this project, because what we found going through it is that the communities we're hitting, Coatesville, Phoenixville, especially southern Chester County, where we're trying much harder to break into, this is where the ALICE population resides. Chester County has pockets of poverty throughout it, and they're in our major population centers like that. And then you find these mobile home parks where you have specifically the people who are the ALICE, and we are able to reach them through this, and through the data, we're able to find that. So tracking data has been a big push for this to make sure that we're reaching the population. And then before I pass it on to Sarah, just a little bit briefly about our agency partners, our community partners. So as I mentioned, we brought in number of organizations we work with, the law schools, we brought in the Delaware County Paralegal Program, the Bar Association. But working with United Way, we've been able to bring far more people to the table than we would have been originally. We've got the food pantries involved. I mentioned Good Works, LCH, La Comunidad Hispana. That's a big thing in southern Chester County, is we have mobile home parks down there, a population that's reluctant to engage with government agencies, with government officials who are trying to do these things. There's a mistrust or a language barrier, many reasons that people aren't engaged. So working with these local agencies is so important. And then government agencies, like Chris said, legal aid isn't an advocacy organization. We can't, and Sarah, I'm just stepping on you a little bit. We can't go out and we can't engage these governments and ask them to consider what we're asking them to do. In this case, reduce mobile home property taxes. United Way can. They can engage with the director of the tax board here in Chester County. They can explain to them what we're trying to do and the impact that it's making. And they can make the argument that looking at all the new construction in Chester County, and there's a ton of it, it's going to wipe out the drop in the bucket that these mobile home reassessments will have made. So it's a fantastic project. We would have never known about it unless Chris Salo and his team brought it to light. We're happy to keep at it going forward. It's made a huge difference. With that, Sarah, I hope I didn't take too much of your material or time.
No, it's okay. Just really briefly, because I do want to make sure that Tim has enough time as well. I just want to put in a pitch for legal aid as a viable and really effective community partner for United Ways in any community. So like I mentioned, LSC, Legal Services Corporation, is the major funder for most legal aid organizations. And as Brian just mentioned, the LSC has a number of restrictions on what legal aids can do. Some of them being, as he mentioned, policy advocacy, and the other being the direct solicitation of clients. We're not allowed to do either of those things. But United Ways can do both of those things. And that's really where the United Way can sort of is a really great match for legal aids, because then legal aids can partner with the United Ways to provide this technical expertise to, analyze the tax code, to find these loopholes, to, analyze these laws, to help these clients in more ways than one. Most of the time, when I was interviewing people, they'd mention, oh yeah, my Social Security got cut because blah, blah, blah. And then we can help people in that way as well. And, just getting engagement with the community and helping people in ways that you didn't intend to before can help 2-3 times over what your initial impact was going to be. So, through our relationship with United Way in Chester County, in addition to the mobile home project, which we've been talking about throughout, I just want to give you an idea. We've done a couple other major impact projects with them as well. Just, speaking to how great our relationship has been over time and in different capacities. For example, we've done expungement clinics, which very briefly, I'm not going to go into it, but it's to get criminal records taken off of away from public access so that individuals can apply for public benefits, employment, that kind of thing, as well as helping people obtain identity documents like birth certificates and social security cards, which are necessary to get employment, other public benefits like public housing in particular. You need those. And, United Ways and legal aids, as Chris and Brian both mentioned, have really similar perspectives and end goals, which really makes us a really great partnership. And, the mobile home project and expungements and ID clinics really show our shared commitment for not only addressing acute legal issues or acute community concerns like high taxes or expungements or lost documents in that particular person's life, but addressing those situations in an individual's life has long-term impacts on not only them and their family, but also the communities, to try to help people break these cycles of poverty, get people into college, get people jobs so that they can, get a higher paying job to help their family provide more money. So in addition to breaking those cycles of poverty, which is a great social justice buzzword. We also help provide legal education for people through seminars and speakers, which is also a partnership through United Way. So we really have a great relationship, and that's just my little pitch for why legal aid can really be super helpful. Is we can provide all these different services and we really just fit together super well with what the United Way can provide as well. And not to jump ahead, but someone mentioned about asking if this is a PA problem or if it's a nationwide problem. I encourage you to look up. There's a great report from Pew Research and HUD. I did a whole study about this for school. And there's some really great reports out there that you should definitely check out about manufactured homes is where you'll find the research. But we can talk about more of that in Q&A if someone has more questions about it. But I want to pass it on to Tim to make sure that he has time to talk about the Bucks County project this year.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for inviting me to join you today. So Bucks County sits on the northern border of Philadelphia, and like Chester, it's considered one of the 4 suburban collar counties of the city. Our demographics are very similar to those in Chester County, and our population is about 627,000 people. So we learned about Chester County's mobile home project in 2019, and we're excited and set to attempt to replicate it in 2020. But with COVID, we delayed a year, and we started in earnest in January of this year, although on a smaller scale. Right off the bat, I have to thank Chris and his team, because throughout the entire process, they have been incredibly generous with us, sharing every resource, every detail, even access to the mobile home valuation software. So it's been really helpful to be able to follow in their footsteps. There were a few differences in how our project unfolded here in Bucks. We did share our plans with our county officials before we started, but unfortunately, they haven't been quite as enthusiastic about the project here in Bucks County. They have expressed concern about eroding the tax base of municipalities, even though we think the impact on any given municipality would be quite minuscule. They didn't openly or publicly oppose the project, but nor did they help. The one thing they did ask us to do was to spread it around. And by that, they meant not draw our entire group of homeowners from 1 or 2 municipalities to reduce the financial impact on any given municipality. It also meant we weren't able to obtain a list of mobile homeowners and their addresses from our county's Board of Assessment. And this made us concerned that recruitment was going to be a real challenge. We were pleasantly surprised, however, that it was not. Through social media, a few flyers, and 1 or 2 cooperative mobile home park owners, and word of mouth, we began to receive a small but steady stream of referrals, which allowed us in the course of about 4 months to reach our target goal, which was 75 homeowners in our first year. Another difference for us is that we didn't work with our local legal aid organization on the project. Instead, one of our board members, is an attorney, and she volunteered to work with our county's bar association. She put together a continuing legal education workshop to educate her peers on the issue of mobile home taxation and the process of filing an application for reassessment. And there were several attorneys who attended, and one volunteered to help us with the project. So along with our board member, between them, they provided the legal representation for our homeowners. And this was done totally pro bono. So we saved some legal costs by going this route. In fact, we had allocated about $50,000 for this project for year one. And since we had planned to work with about 75 homeowners, we figured it would cost us about $660 per homeowner. However, since we didn't incur the legal costs, nor did we have to spend as much money as we thought we would to promote the project, we saved about a total of $24,000. So in the end, our all-in cost, including staff time expended per homeowner, was only about $350. And should we move forward with the project in 2022, we believe with our experience and processes in place, we'll be able to serve even more people for that same amount of funding, and which would reduce the cost per homeowner even further. But we believe that even at a cost of $350 to be able to save a homeowner even up to $1,000, which of course would compound over years, we think it's a worthwhile investment. In terms of staff time, we all know that with new projects, you're never really sure how much time tasks will take, and startup is labor intensive. Again, fortunately for us, our friends in Chester County were very generous with their knowledge and resources, so it was not as labor intensive as we thought. We also had an incredible new team member, PJ O'Brien, who was super organized and a quick study, and he used his time very efficiently. We didn't have to, again, encounter the challenge of putting a lot of time into recruitment like we had anticipated. That helped. And we did train and recruit and use volunteers to do about half the applications with the homeowners, and having volunteers also helped. But I would say in terms of staff time, the project required 2 full days of PJ's time per week for about 7 months, and about 2 hours a week of my time as supervisor. Some of that time was spent in learning and making these initial connections and hammering out procedures. So we believe if we're successful in recruiting volunteers next year, we could help about maybe 125 homeowners for the same amount of staff time that we used this year. Now, the clincher for us is that we have not yet heard the outcomes of our appeals. We expected to hear in November, but that information hasn't been released yet. So I can't tell you what our year one outcomes are, but we're optimistic that they'll be good, and we're looking forward to expanding the project.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing this story. I think it's probably the 5th time that I've heard this overview, but every time I'm so inspired. And to hear the compliment this time of the partners, the multitude of partners, and directly from legal aid, and then to understand that the success of this has inspired scaling within Pennsylvania and Bucks County, and understand when we scale, it looks a little different community to community. It's so helpful to hear your story. So thank you to you all. So we'll move into Q&A. We can put it on the Penny, we can get you that contact information. But let's see, do we want to go all on camera for Q&A? We can stop slide sharing for right now. Great. So we got some good questions coming in off the bat. So one was really around the initial $5,000 investment. Where did that funding come from when you got started, Chris and team?
So we went to our board. Our board had been wrestling with, what is that flag that we put in the ground that says this is what the United Way is? Because our messaging can be complicated. So they made the initial investment of $5,000. The board did through our community impact fund as a pilot program. And again, I mean, you could see very clearly from Brian and Sarah the amazing partners that they are. That $5,000, you remember the application fee is $25 per reassessment. So we didn't have a lot of extra money. We went to legal aid and said, look, we want you to partner with us on this, but by the way, we can't pay you anything. So we need you to do it free too. And we're going to do it for free and we're going to see where it goes. And they did not only not run away, they embraced it. And so finding those important partners that are going to take on some of the cost as well. Legal aid was able to explore other funding opportunities. So they ended up, as one of our partners, bringing funding to the table to assist with this project. I will tell you, from a funding standpoint, this is one of the easiest programs to fundraise for. And I don't want to underestimate the reputation builder that something does. This really, I wouldn't say put us back on the map because we were never off the map, but this got people talking. We were using the United Way worldwide language of we fight for the education, health, and financial stability of every person in the county. And this put a face on that, right? They said, this is us fighting for them. And I've never solicited anybody for this program who has turned us down. One thing that Brian mentioned about the granular statistics, if you keep that data, the stuff that Legal Aid was able to pull together for us in terms of the number of seniors that were being helped through this program, opened up funding for us through a foundation that we would have never had accessible to us. But it was money that was earmarked for seniors only. And because we could show them that we were serving seniors in that community, it opened us up to that funding. So I think all told, with the 766, we've spent collectively in 3 years about $57,000 and saved those homeowners about $7 million over the next 10 years. Not a bad return on investment for community impact dollars.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, a couple of the questions that came in were really around the extent to which we know this is a problem in other communities. And so I'm curious, have you any idea of the full scale of this problem? Are there certain areas of the country where it might be worse? Is this something that is likely happening outside of Pennsylvania?
Sarah, do you want to take that?
Yeah. So I actually pulled a couple. So I did, just for background, I did a lot of data analysis work on this project in combination with a school program that I was involved in. For that, I did a lot of research on mobile homes, and the PA legislature did this really awesome report back in 2009. Can I drop stuff in the chat? I was just going to put a link to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I pulled it up. And let me see. Can I send it to? Yeah, here we go. So this is the PA legislature report that I was talking about. And what Chris mentioned about older adults, the National Center, I'm going to butcher this. The National Center for Law, I forget what that stands for, but it's a legal center that focuses on older adults. And what Chris mentioned about this project particularly affecting older adults is that many older adults move to mobile homes when they retire because it's a lot less maintenance. They're not intending to stay there for the foreseeable future, and generally these parks, like, they take care of the grounds for people, so the residents are only responsible for their own small lot that they're living on. So it's a pretty easy and sustainable way for older adults to continue to live independently while decreasing their burden to be able to live in a particular place. So it's particularly an issue in rural areas. I don't know if it's necessarily like geographically, but it does provide a more accessible, low cost, like Chris was talking about at the beginning, low cost housing option for places that maybe don't have a lot of like Section 8 or something, as well. Someone asked about the Pew HUD research as well. I was trying to find it, but in like a 5-minute quick search, I couldn't find it. I can always like send it to Megan or Pauline or something once I find it. And I'm sure they can share it with you as well. It's somewhere in the ether of my computer.
And as far as like a nationwide problem, I could speak to Pennsylvania because the Pennsylvania tax law says that you got to treat these things like regular houses. It says that right there in black and white. You got to treat a mobile home for everything except for taxes. It's personal property. For property taxes, it's real estate. So if your state has a similar law, it's likely a problem there. We're also fortunate here in Chester County. We have a land use database maintained by the county called Chesco Views, where we can just type in an address and it'll pop up a lot of the data we need to see, like what the current assessment is. And if you look at the home and you see the assessment is out of whack, like it's it's an older home and the assessment is still like 100K plus, it was probably not assessed since it was brand new. You'd have to look. I can't speak, but I do know that generally it's going to start with a tax law.
Yeah, so it sounds like the recommendation is everyone, because it's such a local and state issue, that you really need to look up what's happening in your community to make sure that your fellow residents are not losing out on money that they should have in their pocket. Is it so it's really going to be a local and state decision that everyone should just look up themselves?
Yeah, and how these things are treated, because in PA, Chris mentioned they have titles. You sell them at the DMV. You that's where you transfer your title to these things. These aren't deeds like houses. So you can look for little clues like that. Generally, they're personal property. They depreciate because they have resources constructing them that have finite lives. These things aren't going to last more than 40, 50 years before they start falling apart completely. And the cost of replacing the components doesn't make any sense anymore. So for all those reasons, they're depreciating assets and should be valued accordingly.
Right.
Megan, I would add just not everybody's enthusiastic about the program. So, Pennsylvania is very rural between Pittsburgh and Philly. And there are a lot of mobile homes in some of the counties around the state, and those county commissioners and folks aren't as enthusiastic about changing it. Somebody had said earlier, it was Tim talking about Bucks County, how the commissioners there had requested they spread it around. We recognize in Chester County it wouldn't make an impact, and our commissioners recognize that as well. But I will tell you, we have a tenured board that's been around for a long time, right? A lot of board members that have been around for a long time, and they may, you think they would maybe operate conservative, but this was one of those things where they recognized that we were on the right side of this. So this was worth a public fight. If these people should have never owed this money to begin with. So when you have a municipality or a school district trying to fight the program to say, but you're going to lower the tax base, but it's a false tax base that you're putting on the backs of poor people that shouldn't be there to begin with. But I will say, I met with every legislator in our county, and Legal Aid has been such a great partner in helping us to pull together the information. And we were able to assist getting the state to change a little bit. So now in Pennsylvania, if a county were to go through a countywide tax reassessment, they can then address the mobile home project, but they can't unless they go through a countywide reassessment. And so that didn't really get us anywhere. Our county hasn't done one in 22 years and probably won't do one anytime soon, but we're making small steps forward. But I would encourage you to really collect some data, and talk to some people. You must have some people involved with your United Way that have been involved with county, government that may have some historical knowledge to tell you about this area. It's certainly, from our standpoint, turned into a relationship builder with our county commissioners. Our county commissioners have actually invested $30,000 into this program. So the county's paying us to do this in some cases. That's pretty unexpected turn from when we started. We never imagined the county would give us money to do it. We thought they would fight us every step of the way. But and Tim, you heard Tim say, he was not able to get the mobile home lists. But for those of you that might have a good relationship with somebody in your tax office or one of your commissioners, it is public information, and we were able to get that full mailing list of every mobile home. And frankly, Brian's done this long enough that he can just look at that list and tell you if they're overassessed or not, just by the value of their, what they're being taxed on. But that list was very helpful when we target marketed, and we could use it to kind of see who's left in different developments as well.
I want to get to one last question, which I think is really important. Someone lifted up around really mobile home resident engagement. So how did you work directly with the residents themselves, maybe early in the pilot, and kind of lessons learned through that? But was there a structure? Was it individual interactions, an advisory committee? Just could you share a little bit more about what engagement looked like with the residents themselves?
Brian, you want to take that one?
So our engagement would be typically after they've had an appointment made and we have a workshop scheduled, and we will take it from there and follow up with phone calls to answer their questions. I think the most important engagement would be at the outset. How do we get people to trust that when we're offering them free money, you're going to save a whole bunch of money, just give us your social security number and all your income data. And yeah, we'll take it off somewhere, and in a few months you'll hear back from us, maybe. It's a lot to ask for somebody, and there was a lot of distrust there. And if I think Darshana would be a great person to ask this, but I don't want to drag her into it if she hasn't prepared anything.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead, Darshana.
Yeah, I think for us, that was the biggest learning, is that we were able to engage with people because we had nonprofit partners that they trusted. So that was our first step there, that they came in because they were already working with this partner nonprofit and they trusted. And then second, when our pilot showed them the savings, and our promotion data shows that 40% of the people who come to the project every year are hearing it word of mouth from their neighbor or friend who lives in the same mobile home park. So I think word of mouth is, of course, the biggest promotion here. So the pilot has helped us build on. So every year when people save, they spread the word to 4 other people, and they bring more people in. And as I said, mobile home owners, Chris had mentioned that mobile home park owners have been able to share the information for us as well. But yes, it's one-on-one versus advisory group. It's interesting that a lot of people in these mobile home parks really don't meet each other. They are probably working different job shifts, they're working different jobs. So it's not like there's advisory group or HOA associations or things like that you can really go to them.
Yeah, and I'm big on data. Like, I just want to piggyback off what Darshana said. Like, I'm big on the data. And this past year, we really focused on how are people hearing about this. And then I think going forward, we can all agree, I think that we're going to use that information to then do more targeted outreach to really focus our attention and resources on reaching people in the way that they're actually hearing about us, and then maybe figuring out troubleshooting ways to help improve our reach in other areas. So, but like Darshana said, word of mouth is really, really important.
Yeah, and how do you reach that critical mass so that you get the good word of mouth? I know some of the stuff that United Way did, like mailing campaigns. I think that was really effective. I think we got a number of, like, after word of mouth and maybe some online postings, mailing campaigns was probably right around there as far as response, like getting people to come out. So mailings, I know signage in the parks was one of the tactics employed that was fairly effective. The social media campaigns were effective, but that drew a higher income bracket, I'd say, of people. You got more tech savvy type of people who have access to this. They're not having to go to their library to check emails, which a lot of legal aid clients do.
Megan, I would add as well, I mean, if any United Way is interested in exploring this, please call us. I mean, Darshana has really been entrenched in this for several years. We will give you every single piece of information that we have. I mean, Lynn and Pauline and Megan have been incredible partners in helping organized, this on paper for us through their innovation study that we've then used to go to donors, and we've used to try to advance the program and have a conversation with us. We would be happy to talk it through with you to see if we can maybe save you a couple steps along the way. We're always available for that. And I do believe this is one, in the years I've been with United Way, I've never seen a program that's had a bigger return on investment. I mean, VITA is pretty good, but this one, you're talking about 760 mobile homeowners saving $7 million in 10 years that they shouldn't have owed. It's a pretty great investment for your limited community impact dollars.
Absolutely. Well, we are at time, and thank you, Chris, for that generous offer for United Ways to reach out to you. And I think that's just incredible to be able to take all of your learnings and apply them and shorten that runway. And so we've dropped in a link in the chat, which if you click it, you'll be able to download the Chester County case study on this. So it documents a lot of what Chris and team discussed for your learning. But again, that sounds like that door is open for the actual conversation in terms of technical assistance of how to do this. And so I'm really grateful to you all for sharing this story with our United Way network and partners, and just looking forward to bright things to come. We're rooting for you, Tim, as you get your results this year. And so thank you all for joining us today, and we look forward to the next webinar together. Bye, everyone.
Bye.